The moment you discover that the two people closest to you have been plotting your downfall is surprisingly quiet. There's no dramatic music, no sudden flash of lightning outside the window, just the silent ticking of my watch as I stared at the email from my private investigator, the attached photos showing my wife of 18 years kissing my business partner in the shadows of a hotel parking lot. I had built an empire from nothing, but I never saw the collapse coming from within. 15 years ago, Hamilton Technologies was just me, a broken computer, and a drafting table in my garage. I remember the smell of machine oil and coffee that first winter, working until my fingers went numb from the cold because I couldn't afford to heat the space properly. Lisa would bring me soup sometimes, wrapped in a blanket herself, her breath visible in the frigid air. "You're going to change the world someday, Mark," she'd say, her eyes bright with admiration. "I believe in you more than anyone else ever could." Back then, I believed her. I believed in us. The company grew slowly at first, then explosively after our third year. We pioneered a security encryption system that major tech firms couldn't replicate. Government contracts followed. Then, international expansion. By year 7, I was featured in business magazines. By year 10, we had offices in 12 countries. What the articles didn't mention was the cost, the missed anniversaries, the postponed vacations, the nights I'd crawl into bed at 3 a.m. only to rise again at 6. Lisa's smile grew tighter with each passing year. Her eyes, once filled with that bright admiration, now held something else, something between resentment and resignation. "We'll slow down soon," I promised her on our 15th wedding anniversary. "Once the Singapore deal closes." But there was always another deal. Always another milestone. Always another reason to push sleep and family further down my priority list. Enter Derek Shaw. I met Derek at an industry conference 7 years ago. He was charismatic, brilliant with numbers, and possessed the people skills I lacked. Where I was all analytical precision, Derek was intuition and charm. We complemented each other perfectly. "You need someone like me," he told me over drinks after successfully negotiating our first joint venture. "You build the products, I'll sell the vision." I brought him into Hamilton Technologies as Chief Strategy Officer. The board loved him. Our investors loved him. And over time, it seemed Lisa did too. At first, I appreciated how Derek made time for Lisa when I couldn't. He'd escort her to charity events when I was stuck in emergency meetings. He remembered her birthday when I was overseas closing the Tokyo deal. He sent flowers to our house when I forgot our anniversary for the 3rd consecutive year. "Derek's thoughtful," Lisa would say, arranging the lilies in a vase. "He notices things." The implication hung in the air. Unlike you. I was blind to it all. Too consumed by the company, too confident in my marriage, too trusting of a man who had become like a brother to me. Until 6 weeks ago, when I received an anonymous email with an attached document, a draft proposal for restructuring Hamilton Technologies' leadership. A proposal that would effectively dilute my controlling interest and transfer executive power to a new management team, with Derek at the helm. The document was preliminary, clearly not meant for my eyes. But there it was, with track changes showing edits from both Derek's company email and a personal Gmail account I recognized immediately as Lisa's. They weren't just having an affair. They were plotting to take everything from me. Something inside me, something that had been dormant for years while I built my business, suddenly awakened. A cold, calculating clarity I hadn't felt since those hungry days in my garage. I closed the email, deleted it from my server, and made a decision. I would not confront them. Not yet. Instead, I called Emily. My sister had been my silent partner since day one. While I was the public face of Hamilton Technologies, Emily operated in the background, managing our family's investment portfolio after our parents passed away. She had invested our modest inheritance in my startup and had maintained a small but significant stake in the company. More importantly, she was the only person in the world I trusted completely. "Are you certain?" Emily asked me, her voice steady as always despite the bombshell I'd just dropped. We sat in her minimalist downtown apartment, far from any potential eavesdroppers. I slid my phone across her glass coffee table. "See for yourself?" She read through the emails, the document drafts, her expression unchanging save for a slight tightening around her eyes. Finally, she set the phone down. "What do you want to do, Mark?" I looked out at the city skyline through her floor-to-ceiling windows. My company headquarters was visible in the distance, the Hamilton logo illuminated against the night sky. "I want to let them think they've won," I said softly. "And then I want to take everything back." Playing the fool is exhausting when you've spent your life being the smartest person in the room. But that's exactly what I did for the next several weeks. I began leaving the office earlier, claiming fatigue and stress. I mentioned potential retirement to board members. I allowed Derek to take the lead in meetings, nodding along to his proposals as if I were already checking out. At home, I made a show of drinking more than usual. Nothing dramatic, just enough for Lisa to notice and report back to her lover. I left financial documents conspicuously open on my home office desk. I even started therapy, making sure Lisa knew about it. "I think I'm having some kind of breakdown," I told my wife one night as we sat like strangers at our dining table. Lisa reached across and squeezed my hand, her wedding ring catching the light. "Maybe it's time to consider stepping back, Mark. You've worked so hard for so long. The company will survive without you at the helm." The concern in her voice sounded genuine. Had I not seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have believed she actually cared. "Maybe you're right," I said, returning the squeeze with what I hoped looked like grateful desperation. Meanwhile, I had hired the best private investigator money could buy. Samuel Chen was ex-FBI, discreet and thorough. Within days, he had documented the full extent of Lisa and Derek's relationship, an affair that had apparently been going on for nearly 2 years. He tracked their meetings, photographed their rendezvous, and even managed to obtain recordings of their conversations in public spaces. One such recording cut me to the bone. "How much longer do we have to wait?" Lisa's voice, impatient and irritated. "The documents will be ready next month. Then we just need his signature." Derek sounding confident. "He's breaking down right on schedule. Did you see him at the quarterly meeting? He could barely focus." "Good." A pause. "I've given 18 years to that man. I deserve more than half in the divorce." "You'll get it all, baby. The house, the vacation properties, a substantial settlement. And once I'm CEO, we won't have to hide anymore." I listened to this recording in Samuel's nondescript office, my face carefully neutral. When it finished, I simply nodded and asked, "Is there more?" "Always more," Samuel replied, sliding another file across his desk. "But the question is, what are you going to do with what you already know?" What I did was contact Martin Zhao, my attorney since before Hamilton Technologies existed. I laid out everything: the affair, the corporate coup attempt, my counterplan. Martin listened without interruption, occasionally making notes, his expression grave. "What you're proposing is legal," he said finally. "But the timing must be perfect. One misstep, and they could argue coercion or fraud." "Then we'll be perfect," I said. The key to my plan lay in Hamilton Technologies' original articles of incorporation. When I founded the company, I included a provision allowing for the private transfer of shares between founding members without board approval. At the time, it was meant to protect our family interests. My parents were still alive then, and Emily was managing their investment. The provision had never been removed, though it had been buried under years of amendments and restructuring. Over the next month, I gradually transferred my controlling interest to Emily, keeping just enough shares in my name to maintain the appearance of control. The transfers were legitimate but executed through our private family trust, invisible to anyone who wasn't specifically looking for them. While I played the part of the deteriorating executive, Emily prepared to step into her new role. She studied our current projects, familiarized herself with our major clients, and worked with Martin to ensure every legal detail was airtight. The final piece fell into place when we discovered Derek's own vulnerability. He had been artificially inflating certain performance metrics to enhance his position in the company. Not enough to constitute outright fraud, but enough to demonstrate bad faith if exposed. Samuel uncovered this through some creative investigation of Derek's private communications with our accounting department. All the while, Lisa grew increasingly distant at home, often working late or meeting friends. I pretended not to notice. I even suggested couples therapy, which she reluctantly agreed to, but found excuses to miss. Each lie she told, each cold glance when she thought I wasn't looking, only strengthened my resolve. The trap was set. Now we just needed them to spring it. They chose a Friday for their power play. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., ostensibly to discuss quarterly results, but Derek had privately briefed several key members about a leadership transition proposal. I knew this because 3 of those board members, long-standing friends who had backed me from the beginning, had immediately called to warn me. I arrived early, dressed in my best suit, but with intentionally loosened tie and shadows under my eyes from what would appear to be sleepless nights. Emily would arrive separately, at the perfect moment. The boardroom gradually filled. I nodded to each arrival, noting who avoided my gaze. Derek was among the last to enter, immaculately dressed and radiating confidence. He clasped my shoulder as he passed. "Big day, Mark? Ready to look toward the future?" I managed a weak smile. Always, Derek. Always thinking ahead. The meeting began with standard reports. I participated minimally, letting Derek take the lead on most items. Then, right on cue, he cleared his throat and addressed the board. "Before we conclude, there's an important matter I'd like to bring to everyone's attention." He nodded to his assistant, who distributed folders to each board member. "In these packets, you'll find a proposal for restructuring our executive leadership." I watched faces as the folders were opened, confusion from some, understanding from others. Derek continued smoothly. "Mark and I have been discussing this privately for some time. Given his recent struggles with the demands of leadership, we believe this transition plan will best serve the company's future while allowing our founder the break he so clearly needs." All eyes turned to me. I let my gaze drop to the table, as if embarrassed by my own weakness. "Mark?" prompted Walter Garrett, our lead director. "Is this something you're on board with?" I looked up slowly, my expression carefully crafted to show resignation. "I've given my life to this company," I said quietly. "If the board believes this is the right direction, I won't stand in the way." Derek couldn't hide his momentary surprise at my easy capitulation, but he recovered quickly. "The documents require your signature, of course. They're all prepared." His assistant placed a thick folder before me. I opened it and began slowly reviewing the pages, turning each one with deliberate care. The room remained silent, tension building with each passing moment. Finally, I looked up. "Before I sign, I'd like to ask one question." Derek nodded magnanimously. "Of course, Mark. Anything. When did you first decide to sleep with my wife?" The silence in the room became absolute. Derek's face froze, his smile stuck in place like a mask. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered finally. I reached into my briefcase and removed a thin file. "Let me refresh your memory then." I slid several photographs across the table, Derek and Lisa entering a hotel, embracing in his car, having dinner in a restaurant 2 hours from our hometown, date and time stamps visible on each. "Mark, this is inappropriate for a board meeting," Derek said, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Whatever personal issues we might have—" "Oh, but this isn't personal," I interrupted, my voice no longer weak or hesitant. "This is very much business. You see, while you were busy planning your coup, you failed to do your due diligence. I tapped the restructuring documents. These are quite impressive, except for one small detail. The boardroom door opened, and Emily walked in, followed by Martin Zhao. Allow me to introduce Emily Hamilton, my sister and the actual majority shareholder of Hamilton Technologies. Derek's face drained of color. Several board members gasped. Emily smiled coolly. Good morning, everyone. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but it seemed fitting given the circumstances. Martin stepped forward, distributing his own set of documents. These papers confirm Ms. Hamilton's controlling interest in the company. 56% of all voting shares transferred legally over the past month in accordance with the company's original articles of incorporation. Walter Garrett flipped through the papers, his eyebrows raised. These appear to be in order. This is ridiculous, Derek protested, standing now. These transfers weren't approved by the board. They didn't need to be, Martin replied calmly. The provision was established at founding and never revoked. It's all quite legal. You can't do this, Derek said, turning to me, real fear in his eyes now. I stood slowly, straightening my tie. I already have. Emily took the empty seat at the head of the table, my seat. Now, she said, her voice firm and commanding, as majority shareholder, I'd like to propose some immediate changes to our executive structure. She looked directly at Derek. Starting with the termination of Derek Shaw for gross misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. You have no grounds, Derek began. Emily cut him off. We have evidence that you've been manipulating performance metrics to enhance your position. We have documentation of your attempts to undermine the founder and CEO, and we have proof that you've engaged in an inappropriate relationship with the CEO's wife, creating a clear conflict of interest that you failed to disclose to this board. She turned to the directors. I move for an immediate vote on Mr. Shaw's termination. All in favor? Hands rose around the table. Even Derek's allies couldn't defend him in the face of such evidence. Effective immediately, Emily declared. Derek Shaw is removed from all positions within Hamilton Technologies. Security will escort you from the building following this meeting. Derek looked at me, his face a mixture of rage and disbelief. You set me up. No, I replied calmly. I simply waited for you to reveal who you truly are. I gathered my papers and stood. You told me once that I build the products while you sell the vision. The problem is, Derek, it was never your vision to sell. As security arrived to escort Derek out, I walked from the boardroom without looking back. For the first time in months, I could breathe freely again. One battle won, one more to go. Lisa was waiting for me at home that evening, pacing our living room with nervous energy. She must have heard from Derek already. What happened at the meeting? She asked as soon as I walked through the door, trying and failing to sound casual. I set my briefcase down and loosened my tie. Would you like the official version, or the truth? Her face paled slightly. What do you mean? The official version is that Derek Shaw has been terminated for ethical violations and breach of duty. The truth is that your lover tried to steal my company and failed spectacularly. Lisa's composure cracked. Mark, I don't know what Derek told you, but stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I have the emails, Lisa. I have the photos. I have recordings of you planning your future together, a future funded by my life's work. She stared at me, calculations visibly running behind her eyes. Then, remarkably, she began to cry. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she sobbed. You were never here, Mark. Year after year, you chose the company over me. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to talk to me, I said quietly. You were supposed to tell me you were unhappy. You were supposed to ask for a divorce like a person with integrity, not plot behind my back to take everything I've built. I deserve something for all these years, she said, her tears suddenly drying. I supported you from the beginning. I sacrificed too. You'll get exactly what you deserve, I assured her. Martin will be in touch with the divorce terms. Terms? Her voice rose. I'm entitled to half of everything, Mark. That's the law. I smiled for the first time. Well, here's the interesting part, Lisa. Most of what you think I own, I don't anymore. The company shares, transferred to Emily, the properties in Aspen and Carmel, sold last month to a private buyer. Actually a trust I control, but you'll have fun trying to prove that. The art collection? Donated to museums with long-term loan agreements back to me personally. Her face contorted with rage. You can't do that. It's Marshall property. Some of it, yes. And you'll get your fair share of what remains, which is considerably less than you and Derek planned for. The courts tend to take a dim view of spouses who conspire to defraud their partners. I removed an envelope from my inner pocket. These are the divorce papers, your copies. Mine have already been filed. Lisa snatched the envelope, tearing it open. You're asking for the house? She gasped, scanning the documents. I built it, I replied simply. But I'm willing to be generous with liquid assets. You'll have enough to live comfortably, just not extravagantly, and certainly not with Derek. I doubt he'll be much interested anyway, now that the golden parachute has failed to open. I'll fight you on this, she warned, clutching the papers. I'll tell everyone what a cold, absent husband you were. You're welcome to try, I said, picking up my briefcase again. In the meantime, I'll be staying at the Four Seasons until you find new accommodations. You have 30 days. I walked to the door, then paused. 18 years, Lisa. That's what you said to Derek, that you'd given me 18 years. What you never understood is that I gave you those same 18 years. The difference is, I meant my vows. I left her standing there, surrounded by the trappings of a life built on my work and her deception. The weight I'd been carrying for months finally began to lift. The aftermath was predictably messy. Derek attempted to sue for wrongful termination, but withdrew the case when we countered with evidence of his performance manipulation. Lisa fought the divorce terms initially, but eventually accepted a settlement significantly smaller than she'd anticipated. The last I heard, she had moved to Phoenix alone. Derek, according to industry rumors, had taken a mid-level position with a competitor, his reputation permanently tarnished. Emily remained as majority shareholder but appointed me as CEO once again, this time with a renewed mandate from the board. We restructured the company's leadership, promoting from within rather than bringing in outsiders. Trust had become my most valued currency. 6 months after what company insiders now referred to as the event, Emily and I stood in my office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold and purple. We had just closed our most successful quarter ever. To resilience, Emily said, raising her glass of bourbon. I clinked my glass against hers. And to patience. Was it worth it? She asked after a moment. The price you paid? I considered the question. The loneliness of my empty house. The nights I still woke up reaching for someone who was no longer there. The knowledge that the two people I had trusted most had valued me only for what I could provide them. I didn't pay the price, I said finally. They did. They thought they were taking everything from me, but they only took things. The company, the marriage. Those can be rebuilt or replaced. And what can't be? I looked at my sister. The one person who had stood by me without condition or expectation. Integrity, I answered. Once you sell that, the cost is permanent. We finished our drinks in comfortable silence, watching as the city lights came on one by one, creating constellations against the darkening sky. I thought about the long road ahead, rebuilding trust, perhaps even opening myself to the possibility of love again someday. But not yet. For now, I had my company back. I had my self-respect. I had emerged from betrayal not just surviving, but victorious. Some would call it revenge. I prefer to think of it as justice, cold, calculated, and complete. They say success is the best revenge, but patience is what makes that revenge perfect. 1 year later. The invitation arrived on heavy cream stationery, embossed with the logo of the American Business Association. I had been named Entrepreneur of the Year, an honor that had once seemed important to me. Now it was just another accolade, though I appreciated the recognition of how far Hamilton Technologies had come since the event. The ceremony would be held at the Grand Hyatt downtown. Black tie, +1. I hesitated over the RSVP card. Since the divorce, I had immersed myself in the company, steering us through the transition and into a new phase of growth. Our security encryption system had been adopted by 3 more government agencies. Our international presence had expanded to 15 countries. The Hamilton name had become synonymous with innovation and reliability. My personal life, however, remained deliberately empty. I worked, I exercised, I occasionally had dinner with Emily and her husband. I read books that had gathered dust on my shelves for years. I slept soundly, no longer haunted by what I had lost. I checked "will attend" and left the +1 line blank. The night of the ceremony, I found myself standing at the bar, nursing a scotch while various industry figures approached to offer congratulations or attempt to discuss potential partnerships. I was courteous but brief, my tolerance for small talk significantly diminished by recent experience. "Mr. Hamilton?" I turned to find a woman I didn't recognize. She was roughly my age, with intelligent eyes and a smile that seemed genuine rather than practiced. "Dr. Elise Chen," she said, extending her hand. "I lead the research division at MIT that's been working with your encryption protocols." "Of course," I replied, shaking her hand. "Your team's adaptations have been remarkable. We've incorporated several of your suggestions into the next generation of the system." She looked surprised. "You've actually read our reports?" "I read everything that crosses my desk these days," I said. "A lesson learned the hard way." Something in my tone must have conveyed more than I intended, because her expression softened slightly. "I heard about what happened at your company last year," she said. "For what it's worth, your response impressed many of us in the academic community. Integrity is rare in the corporate world." Before I could respond, the announcer called everyone to their tables. The award presentation would begin soon. "That's my cue," I said. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Dr. Chen." "Elise, please." She smiled again. "And congratulations on your award. It's well-deserved." I watched her walk away, feeling something I hadn't experienced in a long time. A simple appreciation for a straightforward interaction with no hidden agendas, no manipulation, just professional respect. As I made my way to the main table, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Heard through industry channels that Derek's new position didn't work out. Apparently his reputation preceded him. Some victories keep on giving. Enjoy your night, big brother." I slipped the phone back into my pocket, a small smile playing at my lips. When I took the stage later to accept my award, I surveyed the room full of business leaders, investors, and innovators. Somewhere in the back, I caught sight of Elise Chen, watching with what appeared to be genuine interest. "Thank you for this honor," I began. "When I started Hamilton Technologies 15 years ago, I believed the greatest challenge would be building something from nothing." I paused, making eye contact with various faces in the crowd. I was wrong. The greatest challenge isn't building, it's protecting what you've built while remaining true to the principles that guided you from the beginning. My speech was brief, focusing on innovation and integrity rather than my personal journey. I didn't mention betrayal or redemption. Those chapters were closed. At the reception afterward, Elise approached me again, this time with a proposal for a research partnership between her lab and Hamilton Technologies. We discussed possibilities for nearly an hour, our conversation flowing naturally from professional topics to more personal interests, books, hiking trails, obscure documentaries we both had seen. "Would you be interested in continuing this discussion over dinner sometime?" I asked eventually, surprising myself with the invitation. She considered me for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "I'd like that. But I have to ask, are you sure you're ready? I've heard things about your recent past." The directness of her question was refreshing. "A fair concern," I acknowledged. "What happened changed me, certainly, but I refuse to let it define me or determine my future." Elise nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer. "Then yes, dinner would be nice." As I drove home that night, a ward in my trunk and Elise's contact information in my phone, I felt something close to contentment. Not happiness exactly, that would take more time, but a sense that the next chapter might be worth reading. My house was quiet when I arrived, still too large for just one person. But it was mine, uncontaminated by deception. I had considered selling it after the divorce was finalized, but ultimately decided against it. Some battles were worth fighting simply on principle. In my home office, I stopped before the wall where I displayed the original Hamilton Technologies business plan, framed alongside a photograph of that first garage workspace. I had added a new item recently, a simple quote printed in clean, elegant font. "The two most powerful warriors are patience and time." Leo Tolstoy. I had lost much, but gained something perhaps more valuable. The knowledge that I could survive betrayal without becoming bitter, that I could fight back without compromising my principles, that I could win without becoming like those who had tried to destroy me. Lisa and Derek had wanted to take everything. Instead, they had freed me to rebuild something stronger, a business founded on transparency, a life guided by authenticity, and perhaps someday, relationships based on genuine trust rather than convenience or advantage. That, I realized, was the ultimate victory. Not just reclaiming what was mine, but discovering that what I truly valued had never been at risk at all. The empire I had built might have been temporarily threatened, but the man who built it remained undefeated, and that was enough. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.